tab. That way I don't have an echo.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number, I just forgot, what 380, what was it?
338.
338. And I'm a little dyslexic, too. So anyway, I don't know if anyone cares. I mean, once you get up these numbers, unless it's some special number or something, I don't think people really care. All they care about is the guest and the topic, and we've got a cool one tonight. So we'll get to that in a minute. But we're going to do what we always do at the table. We're going to introduce ourselves and talk about anything we've got going. As far as me, got going on right now is I have a Kickstarter. If you go to, I probably should throw up this banner. Let's see if I can pull this up. And you don't have any Kickstarters going on right now because I don't want to step on any toes, right, Galen? Okay.
No, so, I'm in between them right now.
Yeah, last week we had a Kickstarter guest on, so I didn't want to steal their thunder. Okay, there, I'll just keep that up. So if you go to youngandthedead.com right now, I've got a Kickstarter going on for my comic book Young and the Dead. It's a kids versus zombie adventure story. Just think Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. Tons of cool, rewards. I've got awesome variant covers, one by Joshua, who's right here, and I got 4 other rewards for the different issues, but all 5 issues are available. You can get all of them, or just fill in the blanks, whatever you're missing. Cool stuff. I've got remarks, all that stuff. The other thing that I've got going on this weekend, if you're local, I will be at Surprise Comics, and I'll be there all day, signing comics, doing remarks, doing sketch covers. And I think I'm going to try to do something where if you come to the store, if you like I have a QR code or something, if you back it there, I'll do the sketch cover there and give it to you, so you have that in advance. So it's an opportunity to get that a little earlier than other people. So definitely, if you are in the area and you're interested, come out and check that out. That's at Surprise Comics in the city of Surprise. And like I said, I'll be there all day Saturday. So what about you, Josh? What do you got going on?
All right. So I guess this would be like the last weekend, I think, before Long Beach Comic-Con, which is September 3rd and 4th, or maybe this is not the last weekend before that. I can't keep track of weekends, but the point being, September 3rd and 4th, I'll be at Long Beach Comic-Con selling copies of Jacob's Apartment and 2 stories, as well as I'll have some free stickers and other fun things. And so definitely, if you're in the area towards or close to Long Beach, I'd recommend you come. I think if you have kids, I don't sell a lot of kid-friendly stuff. Full transparency, all my stuff is usually 16 or older. But if you're a parent, kids 12 and under get in free. So that's pretty awesome. Even for me, you have to tack on a little extra % if you're going to get extra tickets beyond just a booth buddy or whatever at the con. And I was really stoked to hear I only had to tack on 1, even though I'm going to have my sister and my wife and my kid there, because my kid gets in free, which is pretty cool. So if you guys are interested in something entertaining over the weekend, go to Long Beach Comic-Con. If you're at Long Beach Comic-Con, come by and say hi. And then as usual, also, if you haven't yet, pick up a copy of 2 stories and Jacob's Apartment. The best thing you can do is go to your local library or local bookstore and say, hey, carry this book, Jacob's Apartment by Joshua Kemble. So that's my my stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
All right. And our guest is Galen. And I don't know if it's Galen Ihlenfeldt. I guess you maybe just go by Galen. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm fine either way.
Okay.
You can find all of my stuff. I'm Art by Galen on pretty much everything. I have my own comic series that I do called Baku Dreamwalkers. It's basically it's about this girl Penelope who gains the ability to enter and manipulate other people's dreams, and over the course of the series, she finds out she's being recruited by these dream entities to kind of help balance out the level of nightmares and stuff within the dream world. And it's something that I have a lot of fun with. And 3 issues are out so far. You can get them. I have them on my Gumroad store if you look for Art by Galen. I'm also on, there's a website called CWS Bookstore. It's a new thing that Comics Wellspring is doing. That's a company that sponsors my comic making videos that I do. And they've set up a thing where you can actually, you pay them to print your books, and they will just keep them in storage in their warehouse, and people can buy them from them directly. And it cuts you out from having to deal with shipping and stuff like that. And so as creators, I think that's pretty cool. But I don't have anything like going right now. Like I do my comic work, but I also do like some pinup art and kind of, like spicy artwork on my Patreon and stuff. But I'm working on issue 4 and grinding away at all the stuff. Yeah, I'm just excited to get out to sit down and talk to you guys.
Yeah. Because like I said, I've been familiar with you for a little while, so it's cool to get you on the show. And if you watch my most recent video, you saw me unbox these comics that Galen sent me, along with some other indie comics.
Yeah.
And I read through them, and I'm really intrigued. I'm interested to see where the story goes, and I definitely want to check out issue 4 when you're done with it. So sorry.
Nice, man. Yeah, I'm always curious to find out like what other creators think about it, because I'm it's that kind of insecurity seeking validation kind of thing, but it's a passion project. I really don't make like a lot of money off of it or anything, but it's just it's something I have a lot of fun doing. Yeah,
that's kind of this for me. I've sort of fallen into a niche where I do a lot of like public service comics and corporate style stuff, and it pays pretty decent. But as far as my own passion projects and things like that, it's a lot of it's just a labor of love. But it's good when you can launch a Kickstarter and everything, and you can raise funds and get people interested in it that way. And then it typically grows. The more books you put out, the more of an audience. So it just takes a little while, but there's definitely potential there for indie comic artists and everything. So as I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah, it's really amazing, like the quality of indie books that are out there right now, and just the sheer number of them. In my opinion, I think they're putting out infinitely better stuff than some of the bigger companies are lately. But that's just me. So
I mean, I was talking about how I don't collect a lot of modern stuff. I whenever I go through the comic store, I am definitely. I'm pretty impressed with a lot of the artwork that I'm seeing, but I don't collect enough stuff to really know what's going on in modern comics. But I am a huge fan of indie comics and everything. So I think it's just that I think there's more. I don't know, when you it's something that you own yourself, and I don't know. I think people put more of their heart into it.
Yeah. So. And that's one of my big like draws for indies is they're unfiltered basically. They're not run through that kind of corporate filter like okay, we can't say this, we need to reword this and this kind of stuff, and it gets sort of watered down over the course of that. And I really love just kind of seeing what comes out of people's minds.
Yeah, so I put a link to Galen's YouTube channel. It's in the description. Definitely check that out, because you're doing something. Because I don't know if you heard me say this before, but I did a series called Making Comics 101, and I kind of put a challenge out there. I said, because up until that point, there's a lot of great content out there on how to make comics.
And it was $1 million challenge. So Galen, I just wanted to clarify that Scott might owe some money. No, I'm just kidding.
So, but there, there's a lot of great, videos on how to do comics, but I didn't see really anything that was structured like this is how you everything from coming up with the idea all the way to printing, publishing, everything in between. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to do this, and I did, and I put out the videos, and I said, we need more of this, because it's different people are going to bring different things to the table, and what I put out there isn't the be all and end all of how to make comics. I mean, there's a million ways to make comics, and we need more of that. So I kind of said, I completed this because I saw people do starts and stops, and you said even you kind of had that before you started this latest series. You kind of had a start and stop, but I'd be watching like, oh, this is going to be a series where we're going to do comics, and you're watching, and then and these videos are probably like maybe 5 years old, and you're watching 1 video, 2 video, 3 video, and then it just ends, and I'm like, oh man, so I'm like, oh, I gotta put this thing out and continued all the way through. But I said, we need more of this, so I'm happy for the title to be taken away by by whoever wants to come along and take that, and you're definitely in the running because you're putting out these videos and they're great. So if you have
I
seen, or
appreciate
even
it,
if you
man.
haven't, definitely check out Galen's videos creating comics from start to finish. Definitely some good insight. It's definitely, and it's a different approach than what I took. So you know, I think, yeah, and that's another thing. And I see the stuff you're doing, and this is the kind of stuff I really encourage people to do, because I mean, if you're an independent artist, that you've got, I mean, you can, I mean, there's ways to make a living doing this, and there's so much opportunity, and a lot of people are just missing it. And what you're doing,
Yeah.
and I've got some books on with like templates and things like that, but what you did was interesting. You kind of tied it into the course, so you can order your book and work along with that. I thought that was brilliant. And
Yeah.
you know, same thing with
the
digital packs and things like that. I mean, more artists need to do that. So I mean, you're somebody that's kind of, and I'm not saying that you're looking at what I'm doing and you're doing something similar, because I mean, anything that I've done, I've stolen from other people, probably in a different industry or whatever, and just like, oh,
yeah, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, so to speak, like as the phrase goes. And my main goal with like doing the series and doing, you know, anything that I do really is like just to try to inspire other people to do more of the same kind of stuff. And it's like, because the world needs more creativity out there. Like it needs more people to be open and to tell their stories and to share their art with each other, and to give to give everybody else in the world like a little bit more of a distraction from all of the nonsense that's out there lately.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you can't put a price on that kind of stuff, in my opinion. So like the more people that we can encourage, the better.
Exactly. I think that leads into our topic today. And just and before we kind of go into that, I want to preface it by, if anyone's not familiar with the Artcasters, usually we give our guests the opportunity to kind of pick the topic, and you threw out 2 or 3 different ideas, and hopefully we'll kind of loop around and we can touch on each of them. But one of the things you mentioned was sort of the imposter syndrome, and I can imagine that probably was a factor in you know, wanting to create this thing. Like, you might be like, well, you know, I'm not Marvel or DC. Who am I to put out a you know, a video series on how to make comics?
Right.
But you know, but the thing is, as the title of this you know, topic says, I mean, teaching people makes you a better artist. I mean, you've learned things along the way, and I found this when I was doing because I had to, I mean, a lot of it I had to kind of go back and do research, you know. You know, I create comics all the time, and a lot of that's just rolling around my head, but just to put it all together, you know, I'm like, okay, what are some of the steps I should be taking to, you know, write a story, and just like double checking things and all that. And so doing that research and refamiliarizing myself with kind of how to create comics so I can express that and put it out there. I learned a lot from just building the course, and I've done a couple of courses. I've done the Making Comics 101, and then I did a course for kids on a platform called DIY.org, which now they've gone freemium, so you can watch all that stuff free on their platform, DIY.org.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, and it's for kids, but I don't know exactly how it works as far as signing up. Like, if you have a kid, like, you could watch, I think you could watch some of the content, or, you know, I don't want to encourage like a bunch of adults to go in there, but I know that when they went freemium, they put some stuff in place to make it safe for kids. But what I'm getting at is that course is still, there's a lot that anyone, no matter what your age, is going to get out of it. But
Yeah.
doing those 2 courses really helped me a lot, and not just, and really just articulating, you know, because I can do a lot of this stuff, but how do I phrase it? How would I put it across? So did you have any of that when you were, you know, coming from that imposter syndrome into launching this course?
So if it's okay, like a little bit of backstory before I did the course.
Yeah.
I had originally like done a few like creating comic videos, and it was in like sometime in 2019. I did like maybe 3 of them or so, and I put them up, and I had, just before that, I had another video like really blow up on my channel, and it was doing just stupid numbers. And so like I was excited. I was kind of riding that wave of like being amped up, and it was a foolish expectation to think that the next video, like the next series or subject matter, would follow suit, because that's not how it works. but like because the videos didn't perform like to that degree, I got in my own head about like, okay, well, what did I do wrong? Like maybe I'm not really as good at this, and maybe I shouldn't do it. And so I let myself just stop, and I ended up pulling the videos out, and just kind of spent some time working on my own stuff and working on my books and things. But over the course of that 3 years, when I'm planning stuff, I tend to use Google Docs a lot. Like that's how I put stuff together. And so I just started kind of building out this list of like, okay, what do I need to actually cover? And like you said, like trying to find the best way to sort of articulate it. And I got most of it like written out and not really scripted, but kind of outlined in that first year or so. And then after that, it just kind of sat there. And then it was recently, it just kind of hit me. I was like, you know what, it's time to do this. It's time to stop second guessing myself. And it's like, you know, I've made these books, they exist. That's the proof that I can do this, and that I do have information to share. And that was all the kind of like, I really needed to get that spark back into wanting to make the videos. And so, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it now.
And like I said, everyone should definitely go check it out. I've watched all of them so far, and you did something pretty cool that I neglected to do with mine, is that you sought out a sponsor, and so you got a sponsor, a pretty good one, because it's who I print my comic books through.
Nice. They're a great company, man. I've used them for the past 4 years, and it's you know, the stuff that I say in the videos, it's from the heart about them. It's not because they sponsored the videos. And that was one of the things in my written agreement with them, was I'm going to be honest, you know, and they're not going to dictate, you know, what comes out of my mouth. They do get to preview them, but it's just to make sure that they're represented like correctly. So, and that I don't, you know, put out something that they don't actually offer. But yeah, so like it was originally when I was remaking the course and I started kind of putting it together, it was going to be like a paid thing. I was going to put it on Skillshare or something like that. And then I was like, well, I don't know how well that's going to work. And I was like, what I would really like to do is make it accessible to more people, but still try to make it, you know, something that can kind of help support what I'm doing at the same time. And I just randomly reached out to Comics Wellspring one day. I messaged them on their Instagram and I said, hey, you know, random idea, I'm working on this course. Would you guys be interested in being a sponsor? And I didn't say like to what degree or level or for how long or more than one video or anything like that. And they were like, hey, yeah, we actually love this idea. And they put me in touch with their chief marketing officer, and I started talking with him, and he was like, this is great, because in all honesty, we've been like gearing up to do more or less exactly this. And so it was just, I got lucky with the timing, to be honest.
And honestly, it's almost like a no-brainer, because, you know, honestly, you probably knew, or hopefully you might have figured out that they might be open to this, because part of their marketing already is, okay, we'll give you a discount on books if you put our ad in the back, or if you wear a t-shirt, or if you share, you know, they offer all that stuff anyway. So they know, they see the value in having creators put their stuff out there, because, you know, you're going to a convention, you've got, you know, your t-shirt, or you got the ads on, you know, the back of the book or whatever. I mean,
and they have a thing too, where if you put a banner at the top of your Kickstarter during the campaign, you can get like 10% off of your whole order as well, which is pretty great. But
they really impressed me, because I had gone with another company before them, and they started off all right, and then it just kind of started falling apart, and it just took forever to get things delivered, and the quality and some nightmare stuff with it. But I haven't had any issues with Comics Wellspring. And in fact, this is the first time I ever got any of their sketch covers, and I was nervous about. Yeah, I was nervous about it, because I've done sketch covers on like some of the, I mean, Marvel and DC are pretty good, but some of the other companies, some of the other big indies like Boom and Dynamite.
I've done through a couple of other ones, and sometimes it's just like it's almost like they don't even think about it with the paper choices.
Like putting it on glossy paper.
Yes.
I did one for a guy. It was a Bob's Burger, I think, through Dynamite. It was a glossy cover, and I had to be so careful. And I said, I said, okay. I said, I'm sorry, I can't do any more of these Dynamite covers for you. Because he said, I have a whole stack of these Bob's, because he's a big Bob Burger fan. I have a whole stack of these. It's like, yeah, it's just
it's like, unless you're doing it with
tough.
a Sharpie, I guess.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
But yeah, they've been really good, and even with the customer service and stuff. Like, I recently did my first art book through them. I just did it like trade paperback size, and it's all like the pinups and stuff that I've done. And I did end up having an issue with some of the prints. I had a fairly large number that had some scuffing on the covers, and I reached out to them. I was like, hey, there's no damage to the boxes or anything like that, but now that I've gone through the inventory, like, there's a pretty decent number that have some damage to them. And they were like, okay, box them up, set them out on your front porch. We'll send a UPS guy to pick them up, and we'll get your reprint going. And there was no hassle at all.
Yeah.
So, and that's what it's about, in my opinion. It's not expecting companies to be like perfect, but the way that they handle things and take care of things means a lot.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I just had new carpet put in, and I don't know. It's like I'm really happy with the insulation and everything, but some of the, like, I don't know, if this is too in the weeds, but I'll just bring it up anyway. But like, I had asked them, well, can you give me a breakdown per room so I can write, because I've got one room that's a studio and I want to write it off of my taxes. And they weren't even willing to do that. They said, no, it's just we just give you a full price. I'm like, well, I mean, as much as I'm happy with the carpet itself, I can't recommend you guys. I just can't. I can't give you good. So I mean, you gotta have good customer service. So yeah.
It doesn't seem like it would be too hard for them to be like, okay, square footage, what percentage?
Yeah, right. But anyway, so back to the loop back around to the topic, as far as how teaching makes you a better artist. What's your experience with that, going from the fact that you're like, well, at first maybe you have a little bit of imposter syndrome to actually doing it? What's your experience? What did you find when you started doing these videos?
Well, once you get over the imposter syndrome, and most of that is just thinking, right? Like, just being able to turn your brain off and actually just do the work. Instead of, like, I find what helps me to get over that initial hump is, like, instead of thinking about all of, like, what negative could possibly happen, or what, like, whatever reason I shouldn't do it or something, I try to flip it around and tell myself, hey, you're going to feel really good when you're done with this.
Yeah.
And that way it doesn't always work, but a lot of times it does help me to kind of turn off the dread. And, but once I've started, like, producing them and putting them out there, I've found that, like, just the act of, like we're talking about, doing the research for a topic, making sure that you're thorough and things like that. And I do think that you do have to have a certain drive to want to teach in as best, like, a best of ways you can, like, for yourself.
Yeah.
You can't just throw something out there and expect it to happen, or expect people to be able to learn from it, without putting some forethought in it. But, like, the act of, like, breaking down the information that you're trying to share, I've found has made me understand things way better than I originally did.
It makes it, it's kind of like it's almost like pitching a comic. Like, I see so many people struggle with it, and I've struggled with it in the beginning too. And getting
I'm horrible at pitching.
But once but if you do it so many times, I'm at the point where I could just, like, rattle off my pitch a number of different ways, because I've done it so many times. So it's the more you cover a topic or whatever, the more you get familiar, and it's just like old hat, and it really is. And it's kind of like if you were to, I don't know, sometimes if you're reading instructions and if you're just reading to yourself, it doesn't sink in. But if you read it out loud, it's just hearing those words go back, or just writing. They say it's better to write stuff, like short, like long, whatever, instead of just typing it in. It just resonates more in your brain when you do stuff like that. So
I can see that.
I see a lot of that just in putting that stuff out there, doing the videos and everything like that. And it's definitely helped me. And I was never, and I really enjoy it. I mean, I've done, I don't know, over 1,000 videos, talking about art and all this stuff. And I get, those first videos were really rough, but I get better and better at it all the time. And
Do
Like,
you ever do that? Go back and watch some of the first ones and see
oh,
how much different?
yeah, I haven't in a while, but I have. Yeah, I have, and it's just like, whoa, man, this is boring, and it goes on forever, and you know,
Or you
despite
just
the fact-
disagree with that young man. You're just like, what is this young man doing talking nonsense? And you're like, wait a minute, that's me.
Yeah.
And I'm really big on branding, so I kind of had my branding in place almost from the beginning. Where I think I had the green lab coat and everything like that from the beginning, or
I think
close
you
to
did.
the beginning. But it was still, so it's like at back then I thought, oh, I'm gonna go full production value and but I still look back at it and it's like, okay, you're kind of onto something, but yeah, look how far you've come, because
Yeah.
it's just a flashy lab coat is no replacement for just droning on and just really kind of boring, but you gotta put out those crappy videos to get good at it and get to the point
I
where
think that applies to pretty much everything. Like
Yeah.
whether you're talking about art or writing or making your videos or making tutorials, is like you've got to be willing to suck at it for a while.
Yeah.
And just do it, and that's, I think it's important, like, because if you can change the way that your mind looks at like so-called failures, like you will go a lot farther.
Yeah, especially if you're doing comics, right? I mean, like, it's like if we're teaching comics, it's like there's a certain amount of fearlessness you need to kind of do this sort of thing well, like I think if we're too perfectionistic about our art, like when we're approaching it, then like we're never going to make the perfect page, and so you're just going to keep redoing the perfect page forever, which I've been in that trap before when I was younger, when you're approaching comics. And it's like I think we've all had that loop. The same thing can happen with like teaching, with like YouTube videos, with really anything, and like submitting to publishers. Like if there's a fear of like rejection or failure or whatever, like some of that's healthy and makes you get better, but some of it is just like can literally just put you in like what is it, like stasis, where you're just kind of frozen. Also, Galen, just tying into what you're talking about the imposter syndrome before teaching, I had that at LCAT, where I remember the first time I got hired by like an art school to like teach like art classes and stuff, and I was like, before my first day, I was just like, what have I got myself into? Like, I'm not a college professor, And then you sit in a class and there's a kid asking you like, what's a pixel? And you're like, oh, okay, like that. I actually, or they'll ask basic things, or like you'll look at somebody's art and be like, oh, your eyes look like this on your drawing because you didn't draw a through line on the face, just basic stuff that like we learn and we forget. So
and that's true. That's exactly it. Is that we forget what we actually know and have learned, because it's become so second nature to what we do, and that's why I think it's important that, like, no matter what approach you're taking and how many different people are trying to teach people to do the same kind of thing, right? Like there's always going to be a different way of looking at it, and each different voice is important, because some people will hear a certain voice and some people won't hear a certain voice, and sometimes you'll pick things out of both and mesh them together, and hopefully it just keeps lifting everybody up. But I don't know, man, and that might be a more like romantic way of looking at it than I probably should, but I like the idea of encouraging other people to create.
Hell yeah.
No, I think so. And we a couple of weeks ago we talked about the whole idea, like, why do we do all this stuff? Why do we put out all this content and stuff? And you definitely, I mean, and one of the big reasons for me, and you tell me if it's the same with you, Galen, but like it's just when I was coming up, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have all that stuff. We had to learn things the hard way. And it's like, and I don't want people I want to share what I know. I want more great artists in the world. I want more people to be able to prosper, because the rising tide, it lifts all boats.
Yeah. And oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that was in my thought.
But like, and on top of that, on top of like not having access to information like we do now, I don't think it's as prevalent now, but certainly, especially like in the 90s and early 2000s, I saw it a lot with people. A lot of people like gatekeeping knowledge and not wanting to share it with people because they spent a lot of money at a school to learn it or something, and they just didn't, whether it was out of insecurity or whether it was out of like ego or whatever you want to call it, like they didn't want to share what they had learned with other people. And like I feel like I personally wasted a lot of years on like doing art that could have been infinitely better had I had access to certain things. And I just want to, you know, I want to share what I've learned with people. That's the main thing. And I get the same vibe from you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, anytime, and like I said, like Josh said, you know, I mean, you're doing all this stuff, and it's just like, oh, well, everyone should kind of know how to do this, but everyone doesn't. I mean, it's like it is simple stuff, and it's like, okay, yeah, okay, I could definitely, you know, teach how to do this. So,
dude, perfect case in point, right? Like you guys would know this term, and I didn't even. This is like 2 days ago. I was just drawing on stream, and I was doing a color hold, and I'm like, I'm just gonna color hold the line, and someone was like, "What's color hold?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh crap! Like I have to explain that because like, and that's not.
And this is somebody who's a comic creator, so it's some of this stuff flips through the cracks. Like there's a lot of things like watch cartoonist kayfabe, and they'll mention a term that I wasn't even familiar with, and you know, I'm like, oh, what does that mean? And I'll look it up.
So
and I'm like, oh,
that's the position I'm finding myself in. I have never heard the phrase color hold.
Oh, okay.
Right. Okay.
So
see?
Cool.
Yeah.
Teaching moment. What do we got?
You probably know what it is. You just don't know the name for it. It's like that's
just
what
like
go ahead.
Yeah, when you've been at it for like a while in the industry, at least, like colorists, like professional colorists, just call when you take like black line art and then you color the line, not the flats underneath, but just the line, and that's called the color hold.
Okay,
and I think
if
it
you do an
ties
energy
into, like,
effect or something, you want the edges to be lighter or something.
Yeah, it's like the Disney thing,
Yeah.
right? Where like, you know how Disney does that with like a lot of their lines on the princesses, where it'll be like it'll initially have been drawn in black and then they color hold the line.
You learn something new every day, man.
So, but the weird thing is, like, and I'm not using that phrase to be like, oh, look at my secret knowledge or something. It's like sometimes you don't realize that you know, because if you've been in like the game for a while, you realize you know something that like you don't even realize that you know something that's worth teaching, right? And I think that like the beauty of doing these kind of things is like that starts unlocking, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I actually have some stuff to teach. And I think that's like cool. And also we just had a moment on stream just now where like we all learned, like we learned something just by teaching, right? Like it's because like now, like I don't know. So anyhow, sorry, go ahead. But
no,
I think that's fascinating.
It's accurate, like because we're looking at it and we're sharing information and looking at it from different angles and stuff. But it also comes down to being able and willing to admit when you don't know something too. Like because I had a lot of arrogant years in my youth where I was unwilling to do that.
Oh yeah,
and I screwed myself over a lot.
If there's something I don't know, like what? Wait, what does that mean? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't do you any good. Like you know what you're talking about. First, nowadays you can just Google afterwards if you want to sound smart like you know.
We're just like do it while we're in the stream. What is color holding?
But a lot of stuff like whether it's color holds or whatever, you know what it is. You just didn't like certain things. Didn't know there was a name for it. Like long ago, like I didn't know what. Do you guys know what the Deluca Effect is?
No.
Okay, so Deluca Effect is basically, and I knew what this was, and you know what this is. Both of you guys know what this is because you've seen it. You probably just didn't know there was a term for it. But the Deluca Effect is basically if you like Spider-Man and like a long panel, and he's flipping, and you see like ghost images of him doing all these actions. So you see motion.
Oh,
that's the Deluca Effect. So certain things
it's like all of those frames, but in one shot.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be in one. I guess it could cross panels too, but you're basically seeing action because you're seeing sort of a ghost image, or like you see, like you'll see Spider-Man punching, but you'll see the hand here and the hand here at the same time. One might be a little just to show motion and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that I just didn't know there was a term for it. Like another thing. There actually, I forget what the term is, but there's a term for song lyrics that you hear incomplete. There's actually a term for that. So like there's just all these weird little terms that that's a thing, but I didn't know there was actually a name for it. Like what's the name? What do they call that little thing at the end of your shoelace that holds it together? I mean, there's a name for that.
Yeah.
So it's just
But what's great about it is like, and I love, Galen, that you were highlighting that, like, I think we're all pretty comfortable I guess I should say we're all more comfortable than we used to be when we were younger at like admitting if we don't know something. And I think that's like really fundamental if you're going to teach. And not just that, like, that's opening the wealth of possibility when you're going to teach, of like what you can get out of teaching. Because like as an art director, it's like my bread and butter rests on like how much money like our visual art makes, right? And so like if my team members know a trick that's going to save us time, I want to know that trick. Like I could care less about my ego. I want to know more efficient, quicker, better ways to get better results that'll make us more money. And so it's like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if my like pride is hurt or whatever. There's no place for pride in that kind of scenario. It's like if like I hire a junior designer, just like the like lowest positionally on the totem pole, I don't care. Like I don't care about that stuff. I want to know. And I think that's one of the joys of teaching and leading people is that ability to kind of like learn new things. Even that, like the Deluca effect. Like I didn't know.
Dude, one of my favorite things to share with people.
Thomas called out though with the little thing on the shoelace. It's called an aglet.
It's an aglet. Sorry. We're learning new things all day. That I'll forget probably tomorrow. But
I'll forget before the end.
But I forgot it. Yeah. Go ahead, Galen.
I was just gonna say, like one of my favorite things that people, it's one of those teaching kind of things that you learn when you do stuff a lot, but like you people who are kind of newer or even like more intermediate to it may have never heard of it. Is just batch editing when you're working in Photoshop or something like that. Like being able to create an action and then like just click a button and apply it to everything in one folder. Like
yes.
It's like when I first learned that, I had that kind of like Matrix moment where he's like, I know Kung Fu, you know, it's kind of like that, but it was like, whoa, holy crap. I didn't know you could do this at all. That saves hours of time.
Yeah, I do. I probably should do that a lot more than I do. There's a few of those that I'll set up for tasks. But first I was like, I don't know, that sounds complicated. Do I have to code something? But they make it basically all you'd have to do is hit record, do what the function is you want done, and then hit stop, and it records that process, and you just replay it. As long as your layer formatting and stuff is all the same throughout your files, it'll be easy peasy.
Yeah. It's great for book formatting or book layouts. Like you can just set a quick action, and then all you're doing is hitting like F5, 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 and it's like your pages are just getting laid out. The only thing I will warn people about is like when I was a younger, more obnoxious guy in art school, pretty much all of my peers, when we had a class where we were learning that action making, would set actions that would like close out everything on the computer. So be careful with your actions out there. That's all I'm saying. Because everything you do is pretty much recorded once you hit record on that thing. Just remember that when you're setting.
Yeah, every little click and movement. I messed up a few pages as I was learning that one, but it's pretty valuable though. I don't use it very often, but when I do use it, it saves time.
Do you find that you use it most with layout, like in particular?
Yeah. Like if let's say if I decide, okay, well I need a different font for the pages, or if like if I need like a different resolution or clip or something on the edges or something, like it's real easy to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I use it for anything outside of formatting and layout, to be honest.
Yeah. I only do it for that, and then sometimes to like trap my selections for color. So like I'll set like a specific expand amount, because it gets annoying every time to like hit expand to expand the color fill under your line, like by like and then type in the 2 pixels or whatever. So it's like you can preset it to where like you hit just like shift F5 to like to color fill after you've done like your selection and expanded it, which is like, I don't know, but that's rad.
I don't know if you guys have seen that. I'm just going to throw this out there. Like they sent me one more than a year ago. I did a video on it, but it is one of the best things I've ever gotten for doing artwork. It's called a Tourbox Pro.
Okay, I'm gonna write this down.
Wait, is this like it looks like a video game controller?
Yeah.
It does, but like I have it unplugged. It's like a USB-C plug. But so with Photoshop, I have like this will rotate my canvas. This knob here, I can increase and decrease my brush size. I use the little cross to like select different tools and stuff like that. I have these up here set up for undo and redo, zoom. I have this one hotkeyed to flip my canvas back and forth. I mean, you can set like even combinations of buttons and stuff for this. It saves me so much time.
Oh,
that's awesome.
cool.
That's like literally gamifying the process too. Like,
yes.
which I think is kind of rad.
Like I'd never heard of it. They reached out and they were like, "Hey, can we send you one of these things and get you to do a review of it?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I like checking out tech, and it's been like life changing. Like, yeah,
I know I've got some of those options on my but a lot of it, I probably have like things programmed and I could probably have a lot. I really need to to focus on that. But I've got my key, certain I use and stuff like. What's the one? There's one that's like it's like 4 different keys you press for like saving to web. Do you know that one? Where Photoshop, where it's like Shift, Control, Alt, and then something else. I have to do it.
I think it's
it's like second nature now, but it's like some of these are like they can get complicated,
but the biggest thing for me is just the tool switching, the rotating the canvas, and changing the size of my brushes, because it saves me a lot of right clicks, But
I still use for the brush. I think the bracket. I think
that's all I do is just the brackets.
Yeah, but I'm right-handed though, so like that it's like going from the screen down to the keyboard, screen down to the keyboard.
That being right there, I'm sure it's a lot quicker. Yeah, it's amazing how, when you consider you do these tasks over and over again, even if it takes like a millisecond less time, it adds up. So
yes,
I probably need to figure that out. I'm trying to teach myself Premiere. I'm paying for it with Adobe Suite, and I'm using another program to edit just because it's pretty user friendly. But this past weekend I went through a course on Premiere and everything, and hopefully I won't forget it before I can put it into practice. But a lot of that stuff, they were talking about all these different shorts. I'm like, okay, I gotta learn this stuff, because I've seen some of these people get it like super quick.
One of the things that I love about Premiere is that you can import After Effects compositions directly without having to export it from After Effects.
Okay, cool.
So like the little lower thirds thing, like where my name pops up on the comics videos, like that's a composition in After Effects. I never rendered it or anything. It just pulls it directly from that.
So you don't have to sit through After Effects nightmare rendering, which is great.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to try to figure out like, how do I make this transparent, or worrying about like having to chroma key it out or anything. You can just pull it directly into it.
That's badass. I haven't messed too much with Premiere, but I love After Effects, and now that makes me want to dig into Premiere a little more, because that right there is like a selling point.
Yeah, it makes it really like helpful, especially for obviously for video production, but like for like titles and things like that, because you can just have one file with 40 different comps for different titles and just pull one in and throw it into your video.
It's badass.
Yeah, and going back to how teaching makes you a better artist. I mean, just right now between the three of us, in the sort of live stream setting, we're all throwing out all these tips. I just learned about this new cool gadget. We got all these different shortcuts and things like that. But you can also, when you do these videos, I find there's a lot of stuff that I pick up from people like in the comment section and things like that. Because a lot of times when I do I'll leave my video like, okay, well, that's kind of how I do it. Do you have a different way to do it, or what are some of your tips? And people will respond, and every once in a while I get like gold in there. So I mean, just putting yourself out there in the community or whatever, that's also in turn, teaching that way and getting response and everything. The people watching those, that's going to learn from that as well.
Yeah, and like It's kind of funny. Like I'm getting over it now in my life. I should get over it now that I'm 40. I turned 40 this past weekend. I still don't know how I feel about it, but
I'm way ahead of you.
It's just a number, man. But like
I'm
it's a weird
tiny bit
feeling,
ahead
but
of
I
you.
honestly don't care. Like but like when I was a kid, I remember like there was a moment. We lived in Germany because my dad was in the army and stuff. But anyways, I remember coming across like comic books for the first time, and I was like, "Oh, cool! What is this?" And I remember it was like a Wolverine comic or something. And I have a brother who's about 10 years older than me, and he made fun of me because I was like that. That was cool. He told me, "No, man, you don't want to get into that. People are going to pick on you." And so like I hung on to his advice and I stayed away from it until I was a teenager. And I missed out on a lot of stuff. And so like there's a lot of things about like, the comic world that I just never knew. Like I didn't come into it until like, Spawn was becoming a thing and like the kind of mid to late 90s stuff. And so like there's a lot of times I feel kind of like a poser comic fan, I guess, because like there's a lot of stuff I just don't know.
I feel that way too. I mean, it's like there's stuff there's stuff I know mostly like from the 80s and stuff when I was coming up, but like a lot of times on Josh's streams he'll be talking about these artists, because his taste, I would say his taste in comics kind of skews a little more like, I don't know what you would say, Josh.
Pretentious.
I
have much more pretentious taste in comics.
but I mean, he's talking about artists that I definitely should know, and like, okay, I've got to check, see who this person is, and I'll Google it. I'm like, okay, wow, all right, I need to dig a little deeper into this. So, but I guess I would say a little, not so much in like the mainstream, more like really, like indie, but like indie darling type comic book artists. So,
yeah, and I don't like. I think this is the weird thing, and like Galen, you're probably catching on to this. Like as you hit 40, you start realizing like no one is like a complete expert on everything. Like there's like literally no possible way that like one human being is like an expert on everything. And you start realizing like, like I was a music snob when I was a teenager and then older, and now I have no right to be a music snob because I've just learned more about music, and you realize you can never know everything about music. Like, and then let's say like a ton about like indie rock. Well, then like you may not know a bunch about like 80s music, or you learn a bunch about punk rock and you think you know punk rock, and then you start realizing there's like all these different movements of punk rock, and like there's just no way to like kind of be a full expert on something. So I think that like honestly what you're describing with the comics thing is like pretty normal, because like Scott will talk about guys in comics that are like mainstream, like Marvel dudes, and they're legends, and I like have no idea who he's talking about, and like Corey.
That would be me for the most part. Like the first comics I remember getting into, apart from like I liked the art style in Spawn, like it was gritty and it was very 90s and new at the time.
Yeah, it was Spawn.
It's like the story but like I loved the art in it. But the first ones that I really started like getting into, like I loved Witchblade, and I loved there was a Top Cow book called Spirit of the Tau, and I think it was drawn by a guy named Billy Tan. But it was awesome. It was like a little 15 like I almost said episode 15 issue series, like a limited series, and it wasn't like your typical superhero book or anything like that. It was just kind of its own thing. And I really liked stuff like that, and for whatever reason, I kind of like I had a really hard time like holding on to comics, even though I had a deep desire to make them. Because even my book Baku Dreamwalkers that I do now, I have a sketchbook from when I was 16 that has like kind of the first few like trial pages of a book that I was going to call Dream Realm, which is kind of the same concept, but it's obviously a bit more mature, like and better now. but yeah, it's that whole like kind of getting over the fear of like worrying about how you're going to be perceived, and just be more authentic to yourself and do your thing, and not stress it.
Yeah, and like one of the reasons I love digging back into like the older stuff, some of the stuff Scott's been talking about, like this has been like the last 5 years I've started getting into like the older history of comics that like predate like Marvel and all of that stuff, like the old Sunday comics, you know, from like the William Randolph Hearst days, like where like you've got like these Chicago newspapers like running these like revolutionary artists, you know, who are doing things that like people don't do today. And like I love like looking at that stuff, partially because I think that actually like we need more voices in comics that aren't as big of comic geeks. Like I actually think that coming at comics from an outside perspective actually can like broaden the range of it and stuff. And I think so. I honestly, I think it might be a credit to you, Galen. Like if you're less familiar with some comics, that could actually be a superpower, because there are a lot of people who get dragged down by like the conventions that exist within comics and don't realize like those restraints aren't like necessary, you know? So
yeah. I guess one of the things that's like when you're even if you're feeling confident about it, if you're kind of like fringe, I guess if that's the right term, but like having somebody who is like more involved in the mainstream stuff, or maybe they've been involved for a long time, come at you and say, well, you're not supposed to do that. Like, because like my answer has always been, and like, well, I did it, you know. It's like but I don't know, it's that's always been one of my biggest hangups, is like second guessing myself, and I'm finally starting to come to a period in my life where I don't do it as much, so I'm happy about that. But
that's the beauty of like 40 plus. It just, you're second guessing. Like seriously, like it's nice. Like that's one thing I've noticed is like as I get older, I don't know, maybe Scott's not like much further than me, but it's like he's a little further down the line than me. And I wonder, Scott, have you just gotten to the point where you just like your amount of, pardon my language, shits to give has just disappeared, or is it just like still gradually declining? Because for me, I've like noticed in the last few years, like I have had those like reduced quite a bit.
Yeah, for me, I guess you can put it that way. Or to me, it's about being asked to things. You know, I'm at the point now where, okay, if that's the way you feel, or that you want to do it that way, that's fine.
Right. You come into terms with that, like what you're putting out isn't going to and doesn't have to be for everybody.
Right. Yeah. That's, and I am a people pleaser. So it's like, I'll get comments like, oh, can you do this kind of video? I'm like, oh, maybe. I'll never do, in my head, I'm going, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. That doesn't interest me at all. But, I don't know. I just try to, I just try to be cordial and everything. So, but it is, and also, a lot of it, the work that, I'm far enough in my career where I'm at the point where I can definitely turn away stuff. And that's a nice position to be in, because the more you can turn things away, the more the better jobs you'll get, because it's like, it's kind of the hard to get thing. If you're not if you don't need it, then people maybe want you to do it a little more and might sweeten the pot or whatever. So, recently I've been just getting these just amazing projects that are just like, wow, really? This is a thing, and what's going to happen? And so, but I don't know if so much of that would happen if I was too attached to the outcome of, I need this, I need to have this, I need this particular job right now and all that. And I guess sort of it's kind of coming from a place of privilege, but I've been doing this a long time, and it wasn't that long ago where I wasn't in that position, and I've been doing this for a very long time. So I just recently where I am kind of in a position where I can be like, like whether it's a project, that'd be great, but if it doesn't happen, that's okay. I've got these other irons in the fire, and I've got a lot of stuff going on. So
that's a discipline I wish I would have learned like really early on, but I didn't. And like, I think especially if you're like, because I never went to school for art or anything. I did take some continuing ed classes and things like that, and even in high school I took a whole bunch of drawing classes, but I'll be honest, I failed every single one of them. Like and it wasn't because I didn't have the ability. It was because I was too full of myself to actually do the assignments that I thought were boring and that I didn't need.
Yeah, that's the trick, because what you don't realize is that it may look boring, but there's a reason why you're doing a lot of that stuff.
And it's coming full circle, because it's like I homeschool my kids, and like they're wanting to do art and stuff, and trying to get them to do the same stuff. And I'm like, look, man, I said the same thing that you're saying right now, only I feel stupid for saying it. So, but like, I had a train of thought, but I lost it somewhere. Oh well.
No, it sounds like it was on the lesson of kind of like work kind of coming when you I think it was relating to that.
It was about learning to say no to projects.
Yes.
Because like when you're like any sort of upcoming artist, like I spent the first couple of years or the many years in my 20s not knowing that I should not put graphic design in my list of things I want to do. Like, because I just kind of figured it was like, okay, that's like digital art or something like that. Like I wasn't educated enough to know that, like, okay, this means like logos and branding and things like that. And also like learning to say no to like people that want you to draw their dog, or they want you to draw a portrait of their wedding day or something. And it's like, no, you just like, I did so much of that crap and I wasted a lot of time doing it. Like I did learn some skills doing it, but you know what I mean? I don't know.
No, I think that's true. Like, you know, like the early lesson of like, like whatever you put on your website ends up coming back in full. Like, meaning like if you put a bunch of stuff you don't want to do on your site, you're going to get that work. Like that's the work that'll come to you, like when you're promoting it. And like, so to like learn how to like hone it down. But I agree with like Scott and you, Galen, on like the fact that I think this year in particular has been really fascinating, because I think Scott and I were kind of behind the scenes kind of amazed, because we both had times where we've been approached by like publishers, and I've had to be like, I can't, like, I can't even pitch anything. I have nothing, like I'm booked till July, you know, like I can't,
awesome.
I can't.
It's a good feeling. It's a bittersweet feeling sometimes, I would imagine, but
it's a little heartbreaking for the older me who would have killed for these. Like that's the weird thing that happens. And I think Scott's in a similar position where like the younger us who's like dealing with the feast and famine, and hey, you know what, maybe it's a year from now us, because like again, creative can come and go very quickly. So like I don't think any of us like are taking for advantage like the fact that like honestly like all the work could disappear tomorrow, you know. Like, but it is weird to like be in a position where you really do feel bad for your younger self, because you're like, oh, you just got to hang in there for a bit, and then it starts kind of blossoming to this thing where you get opportunities like that you can't even take, like, which is it you know, would be frustrating if I heard that as like a younger artist. But it's like, or like next year if I'm like drive for work, I'll think back and be like, oh man, how did I turn down those? But it's a weird position to be in. And because of the feast and famine and nature of creative, when you do have those seasons of like really like arriving, it is kind of cool. Yeah.
For me, I'm kind of at the point where, you know, I've been approached to do these comics, and I just don't have time to do it, you know, to draw them. But so, you know, because they pursue, I really want you to be involved with this. So I end up, you know, becoming a writer and an art director. So I'll write the story, and then I'll find great artists to do it for me. And it's a unique position I haven't really been in, because in the past I've just like, and before, when I was younger, you know, I could burn the midnight oil and do all this, and like, okay, I can work on 2 comics at a time and do all this stuff. And now it's just like, no, I mean, I'll just write it, and then I'll have an artist do it, you know, find it, because I'm all in other artist work and stuff. So, and there's a lot of artists there that want work, and there's a lot of great talent out there. So if that just creates another opportunity for somebody else. So it's pretty awesome.
Hell yeah.
And that's honestly, that's what I'm hoping to kind of build towards. Like, not that I don't want to stop doing my own, but like I have so many things that I want to work on. And I'm never going to have the time to do them all.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm trying to get to a point to where, you know, not only bringing in enough to support myself off of, but like to be able to pull in more people to do bigger projects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the irony of like teaching and doing comics is you start realizing it is a crap load of work, and it's insanely time consuming to be a complete creator of a comic book. And it does make one like, as you do a couple and you're like, I don't
Well,
know,
'cause
like those 5 other ideas may not happen if I don't get a team on it. You
if
know
I
what I
don't
mean?
live to be 300, yeah.
Yeah.
But like my memory isn't failing me. All 3 of us have done solo books, right? Like,
That's pretty
Oh, yeah.
much all I do. I think that's pretty much all
okay,
Josh. Well, right now he's illustrating a book that
okay,
that was written by another author. So,
Mhm.
but
gotcha.
for the
So
most part,
you
I think
guys,
that's
like,
all three.
you're kind of the rarity, like, because I don't bump into guys who work solo very often, and it's nice to it's a treat to be able to sit down and talk to you guys, because you get it, you understand like how much of a grind it really is.
Yeah.
And you understand that it like it's kind of hard to do it unless it is a labor of love, you know.
Yeah, and there are there are some drawbacks to doing all the stuff yourself. Like for instance, like Josh, because he's working with a publisher, he's he has an editor that can look over stuff and say, okay, you misspelled this, or maybe that's not the right way. Because us, unless we're it off to somebody else, then sometimes we might miss things and everything. Like have some
Yeah,
saying, "Oh, you spelled this wrong. Got a typo here," or whatever the case is. So
Yeah.
this looks a little off. You know.
yeah. And like my editor is basically like my main one is my wife, you know. I'll pass it to
Right.
her and she'll check it out for me. And then Cesara is actually one of my main like moderators for my Twitch and my Discord community, and she and a couple of other people help me with proofreading and kind of giving me feedback on things. And it's been a blessing because there's so many little things that end up getting overlooked when you get that sort of, I don't know if it's tunnel vision or whatever it is, but when you work on for something for so long,
Oh, yeah.
things just become invisible and called out. Just, but no, it's a blessing to have people that are willing to do that. And so I put her in issue 3 of my comic. There's a scene where the main character Penelope is at a little coffee shop. Hang on, let me see. And I'm gonna put you on the spot, Chaz. So like the one with the green hair and the little cat ear hat, that's her.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Nice.
awesome.
And
That's
the
rad.
other the other 3 are also moderators of mine too, and so like it was kind of my way of saying thank you to them for being so supportive and helpful.
Oh, that's
rad.
awesome. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, because I mean, it goes just back to what I was talking about the comment section, and when you have a community like that that's super engaged, that's another way, because it goes both ways. It's not like a one-way street. I mean, you're definitely gonna get feedback from them that's gonna help you become a better artist too. So
Yeah.
well, that's kind of what it's all about. So
Mhm.
so
And I do want to cut in there and just say,
Yeah.
if we're giving shout outs to mods, I just want to
Oh, yeah.
shout out my own mod, Frank Salazar out there.
Yeah,
who's
he's
a
Frank's in the chat.
badass.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
He's
just
every single one of these streams. I always see him.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know how he has time to watch all these streams, but he's in there.
He's
so,
omnipresent.
yeah. How can you be everywhere at once, Frank? So yeah, I mean, I think that I kind of wrapped around the topic, but I want to quickly dive into because we wanted to talk. You brought up a few different topics, and we've talked a little bit of this on the show, but kind of, I guess, sort of your business model as far as like your Patreon, the book that you put, like, because the book, I don't know if I'd say all ages, but it's definitely not safe for work. But you also, but you on your Patreon channel, you do not safe for work content like that.
Yeah,
So how do
the
you
Baku
kind of break
book,
that up
like,
and everything?
well, it's been a weird kind of like juggling act, and it's also been a weird thing with just having the confidence to do it, because like I've always had the desire to do pinups and to do the not safe for work type stuff, but it's without diving too deeply into it, like it was always met from family and even in past relationships with negativity and like oh, why do you want to do this? It's if you have people that are like ultra religious, they're going to be very against it typically, and or if you have like an insecure partner or something like that, you're not going to have good outcomes with it. And I dealt with all of that, and so I just left it alone for a long time. And And Chazara and my wife Mandy were instrumental in getting me to start doing this on my Patreon a little bit more than a year ago, maybe about a year and a half. And I just started doing monthly pinups and putting them together. And it turns out people really enjoyed it. And so I've just kind of fully embraced it. Like that's what I do there. I also share my comic pages and things on there. But it's a whole learning thing. I'm still kind of like at the bottom of the totem pole with that, I feel like. But like, let's see. Okay. I'm not gonna show anything that would break terms of service on YouTube. But I did a book, and this was printed through Comics Wellspring as well. And this is
cool.
kind of indicative of the type of like illustrations that I do for that.
Yeah.
They're more into like the realism kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
it's definitely more painterly than the comic.
Yeah, and it ended up being like 130-ish pages or something, and it's and I can't show them obviously, but it's it's got like not just the final artwork, but like different versions of them and works in progress and some of the thought processes behind them, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's been interesting, like, and you will always get the strangest requests from people.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
But no, as far as my comic, like, it's not really not safe for work, I guess, but like I think it does technically have a couple of little like very minor instances of nudity in it, but you could overlook it. It's so subtle.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely not like a kid's book for sure.
Right. Yeah. I think we're all, well, I mean, mine's a little more, I guess, ages, but Josh, for different reasons, his stuff skews definitely more adult.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think like, your average like 7 or 8 year old really wants to read a story about suicidal ideation and like mental health issues. And no, I'm just kidding. It's definitely not for kids. So yeah, but I think the idea of writing books that aren't for all ages is kind of awesome. I also at some point am, like if I ever have like a young adult thing, like actually the book I'm working on right now is going to be like marketed to both middle grade and above, because it's like historical fiction. So it's not like it gets tense and stuff like that, but it's not like there's not material in it that would be inappropriate for like a junior high kid.
I gotcha.
But it is interesting, like kind of working in that realm. Galen, do you do conventions at all? Like,
because I live in like central Texas, it's always like a massive travel to get to most of them, unless it's Dallas or San Antonio or something.
Got it.
I do them once in a while.
Okay, so have you had that moment where like this adorable little kid comes to your booth and is like grabbing the thing and you're like, no?
Yeah, I have. I've had to pull a couple of parents aside and be like, hey, that may not be for them. But and I've got another, it's kind of on the back burner right now, but I have a second book that I'm working on just kind of as I have free time, and I haven't had any of that this whole summer, so I haven't done much. But it's, I guess for lack of a better way of explaining it, it's more or less kind of a smut book. But I mean, it's something, it's not for the sake of being that, but it's just an interesting topic. Like the character is she's a witch who happens to specialize in like love and romance kind of magic and things like that. And it's just something I was having fun writing, and I was like, all right, I'm actually gonna just start drawing this, and I'll put it up on Patreon. I don't have any real intent to print it just yet, but maybe if it gets to the point to where I've got like a graphic novel size worth of pages in the future, I'll print it. But because I don't think stuff like that, I don't know personally, but I don't think that would do very well in like single issue kind of format. But I could be wrong though.
Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult to say. Do you watch or listen to Comic Lab at all? Podcast. So it's hosted by two guys, and they're just it's probably the best comic book podcast there is, in my opinion. I mean, these guys are like just super entertaining. They're super funny. But one of the guys, he does not safe for work. So he's got a comic called Evil Ink, and so his free stuff he puts out is it's I guess all ages, or it's not safe for work. And then on his Patreon, he does like I think Evil Inc. After Dark, where it's the same characters, so you follow further adventures, but it's a little, it's a little more risque, I guess. So, but this guy, I mean, these guys are like super successful cartoonists. So, I mean, and there's a lot of great content from, listening to those guys. So I highly recommend that podcast, but especially if you're somebody, he doesn't dive into it too much, but I know the other, here's another thing. I heard that as far as not safe for work content goes on Patreon, that it's not searchable, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah. So once you label your Patreon as not safe for work, they basically pull you out of the pool to be advertised and pushed.
Right.
And your growth is going to depend completely on yourself.
Yeah.
And,
Which I think Patreon in general is kind of that way. I don't really
think a lot of people go to Patreon with the intent of finding new people. But I don't know how much it would actually hurt someone.
Yeah, but I think it's even in the search, because I don't know if you have to have like a direct link or something, because in researching kind of what those guys were doing, I went to see what he was doing on Patreon, kind of see kind of what his numbers were and stuff like that. And I couldn't even find it. Like,
I do think that might be a possibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it is a little bit like limiting, but I mean, as far as that goes, but the thing is, unfortunately, there's not a lot of platforms that even allow it. So I mean,
yeah. Well, I remember him talking about how it's kind of to the artist's advantage, because if people could just search for it, there's going to be people that just stumble upon it, and then you get a bunch of negative stuff, and people call you out. So that's one of the reasons why it's almost an advantage for, and it's kind of up to you to drive your own traffic to it anyway. So,
well, yeah, I mean, if it's like DeviantArt has gotten a lot better than it was maybe 6 years ago. I don't know if you guys have spent much time over there, but like especially, with like maybe within like 5 or 6 years ago, it hit a point to where you couldn't log into it without seeing something like very, very not safe for work.
Oh, really? Because I think there's a filter, because I know when sometimes I will go
there are filters, but there were so many people putting things out there and just inappropriately tagging them that like if you were on there at least once a day or something, you inevitably would see it. But
yeah, because I remember going there, and there's certain things you're scrolling through portfolios, and it says this is not that, you have to, are you over 18 or something like that? And so
right, and they've gotten much better at filtering that stuff for sure. And plus, they even added a feature where like you can hover over something, or there's like a little thing you can click and say like show me more like this or show me less like this kind of thing, which is pretty cool. But like But yeah, just the only reason I brought that up is just talking about like people landing on a platform and being flooded with that kind of content can be a pretty big turn off for a customer.
Oh, so. Yeah, definitely. And it's good to give somebody the option, if they are just like a potential client, who knows what they're actually looking for, and then they can make the decision, if okay, well, this is behind there's a an age verification or something like that. So yeah, that all makes sense. So. All right, Galen, is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you want to, before we start wrapping things up, that you wanted to mention, or any caps you want to put on any topic that we didn't get to, or anything?
Not really, like, because I don't have any hard like dates for anything that's coming out anytime soon. I'm in the very like kind of middle stage of working on issue 4, and because it's just me, it takes me a little while, and as you guys know, and but yeah, just if you're interested in checking out any of my stuff, I'm Art by Galen on all the things, unless you want to see some of the more like spicy art. I do have a second Twitter account that's just called Spice by Galen. So, and it's a brand new thing. There's only a couple of posts, but
so is there like a website or a hub or someplace you can go to where you find
not
all your
currently
links?
I have like a Linktree thing, but like but I don't have an actual site at the moment.
Yeah, well, even a Linktree is, I mean, if there's one place to go to where you can kind of find all your stuff. I put the link to the the YouTube channel in the description. So
Yeah.
and I know there's links. If you go to the about section, I noticed that you've got Instagram and stuff links in there too. So
yeah, the only other thing that I didn't mention is that I do stream on Twitch generally every week, but I do it early in the day on Monday mornings and stuff like that. And so like
Nice.
we'll get on and we'll hang out and we'll either work on pinups or work on comics or just kind of hang out. And
that's cool.
Every once in a while I might play a game or something, but most of the time it's art stuff. I'm trying to see if I can find my link tree thing.
Well, like I said,
I don't think I have it because it's one of my bot commands.
Yeah, definitely check out Galen's YouTube channel, Art Galen, because, and like I said, link in the description, because there's a great series on there, creating comics from start to finish. And I understand you've got a few issues already recorded that are coming out. You just got to run everything by the sponsor and all that.
Yeah. Depending on when they get back to me, there's a good chance there might be a new video by Friday. If not, it'll be by next Wednesday. So currently there's 10 videos up. It's either 10. Yeah, I think it's 10. And there's going to be at least about 15 by the time it's all said and done. And it
Cool.
covers everything from coming up with ideas to fleshing out your script to, sketching your pages, drawing, inking, and coloring. And even though I'm not like a pro at it or anything, I'm sharing what I do know about lettering and stuff like that. And one of the other things that I really am gonna like try to do a detailed video on is crowdfunding and like how to kind of go through and do your homework for a Kickstarter or something like that, because there's a lot of people I've seen that have put themselves in pretty horrible situations by not properly researching what they're doing. And I'm not even exaggerating, I've seen a couple of people that I have worked like directly and indirectly with in the past that have put together Kickstarters for art projects and things and have funded into 6-digit figures only to bankrupt themselves because they didn't do the proper homework on things like shipping and taxes and fees and things like that. And it's incredibly sad to see happen. And I try to I have some things that I do to try to make my crowdfunding things a little bit more immune to those kinds of things. Like you can pad your budget by offering like original artwork or like you're doing like remarks on your books and things like that. Things that you can do that only cost you time, as opposed to like having to actually raise your expenses and things like that. That can help you to kind of get things paid for. And but yeah, hopefully like be able to put something together and help other people to do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I definitely want to check that out.
That would actually, I might have an idea. I don't know if you'd be willing to do it or not, but that would actually be kind of a neat one to collaborate with you on, because you do the Kickstarter stuff too.
Yeah, I don't know how much of an expert I am on it, but maybe that'd be cool to do a collab.
You guys, didn't we just talk about the ridiculousness of the imposter syndrome of thinking you're not an expert? Scott, do the collaboration. It's a great idea. I love it.
All right. Have your people call my people again. All right.
As soon as I get some people, I'm on it.
All right, Josh. What do you got to promote?
So as usual, I got 2 stories in Jacob's apartment. 2 stories is my graphic novel that talks about my journey dealing with manic depression, as well as caregiving for somebody with panic disorder. It's very like heavy adult only sort of material, but it also gets into like, growing up and seeing the hypocrisy in like a religious school. And then also like a lot of like real auto-bio, like Zap comics, like the indie underground stuff that we all love. And then Jacob's Apartment is my graphic novel that's more fictional. It's like if you took Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind, put it in a blender with Ghost World, and you like that kind of flavor, it's that sort of like slice of life book. And then also if you're in Long Beach, on the 3rd or the 4th, or you're near the Long Beach area, come say hi at Long Beach Comic-Con. I'll be boothing there and selling copies of my work. I always draw like pretty awesome pictures in my comics. I don't charge for those drawings, so please come by and pick up the work, and I'll sign it and draw something for you. Or at minimum, even if you already have a signed copy, just come say hi, because it's always fun to meet viewers of the channel and stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. And as far as me, I've got a Kickstarter running right now. You can see the little ticker on the bottom, Young and the Dead. If you just go to youngandthedead.com, it'll take you right to the Kickstarter. It's a kids versus zombie adventure stories. Think Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead, or you're a fan of Goonies, Monster Squad, E.T., Stranger Things, all those kid-centric action adventure films of the 1980s or that take place in the 1980s.
And he hit his funding goal in the first day. Heck yeah!
Hell yeah!
But that's not. I don't want to just rest on my laurels. So we've got a stretch goal we're trying to hit.
Understand.
So, yeah, we've got a really cool 3D print by Federica Marchetti, who did one of the variant covers, and we gave it the 3D treatment. And I want everyone to get that plus the 3D glasses. It's super cool.
Awesome.
I really want to make that happen. So we want to hit those goals. So definitely check that out. Look at all the different tiers, and there's definitely something for you. We just got awesome variant covers from Josh, and there's Josh's variant cover right there, which is
hovered, levitated with special effects. You see this?
A throwback to old EC Comics. I love it. So other than that, if you happen to be local in Arizona, I will be doing a signing this Saturday at Surprise Comics. Come by, say hi, and if you back the campaign on the spot, if you're backing at one of the tiers for original art, I will do the original art right there on the spot, and you'll have that. You'll have to wait for the rest of the stuff to get to you, but you'll have that right there. So that's unfortunately, I can't do that for everyone, but if you're local, then you kind of get a break if you take the time to come down and see me in person over at Surprise Comics. So, that's an option. So, other than that, I think that's all I've got to promote, other than the fact that this show, that Artcasters, we do this show every single week. It rotates from Josh's channel to my channel, and sometimes Corey's channel. Corey is our third guest who's on vacation right now, which is kind of a bummer because this topic, he's the actual one that's a college professor. So,
that's true.
It would have been right up his alley. But anyway, the live streams and everything, they kind of bounce back and forth between each of our channel. We usually do it on Thursday nights. Today we're doing it on a Wednesday night, so it can change. But the best way to know exactly where we're going to go live, who the guest is, what the topic is, what day it's on, all that stuff is to join our mailing list. We don't spam you or anything like that. We just, about 30 minutes before we go live, we send out a newsletter, and it'll have a link to where you can catch the show, because YouTube doesn't always let people know when we go live. So that's the best way to know exactly when we're going to go live, whose channel it's going to be on, and everything, and make it super easy if you join that. And
I like Frank's comment there, talking about Corey's got a mohawk, so Galen, like, you got a one mohawk per stream rule, I guess.
That's true.
Oh,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's great. Frank's always got. I missed that. I would have been bummed out if I would have missed that. So, all right. So, and speaking of Frank and everyone else in the chat, thank you to everyone in the chat. Thanks for showing up and keeping that chat alive. It's been pumping. I've been kind of watching some of the stuff that goes through there. So, always great to see a lively chat. And hopefully we'll see you all back next week. I think it'll be on Josh's channel next week, probably back on a Thursday, but who knows? That's why you got to join the mailing, so you know when we're going to go live. Thanks again, Galen, for coming on. It's been a long time watching your stuff and finally getting you on the show. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a pleasure. It was a treat to get to sit and chat with you guys.
Yeah, thanks for staying up late with us. And everyone else, we will see you guys next week.
Yes.